This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 80.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 80, and in today's episode, I will be answering your questions. This week's question comes from Joy, and the question is, at what point did you begin believing in yourself and your business? Now, I get a lot of very similar questions, meaning they're kind of asking the same thing. And often people ask, how do I know that I'm good enough to start a business? How do I know that I'm good enough to start a YouTube channel or a blog or whatever it is? Because a lot of people see all these great content producers and all these awesome businesses and interesting people online, and they get scared. They think, well, this person is really good at what they do. I'm not that good. I'm not good at all, for that matter. Maybe I shouldn't even start doing that, because how could I compete with someone? How could I ever be as good as this person? How could I build a business as good and as big or as profitable as this business? And that fear kind of blocks a lot of us from starting our own businesses, from creating a better life for ourselves, for doing something that we really want to do, but we aren't sure how to do. And when we see someone who has done what we want to do, it kind of scares us away, because we don't have an idea where to start and we don't know if it's going to work for us. Back to today's question from Joy. At what point did you start believing in yourself and your business? In my personal case, it's quite of a long story, and most of you who listen to my podcast or read my blog, you kind of know how my story went. And I'll kind of repeat it and give you the highlights of it in this episode right now. So before I started making money online, I spent a lot of money on different programs that promised to make me rich, that promised easy money, that promised overnight success. So I spent a lot of money on those. And when I failed and I failed and I failed again, I thought, okay, that thing, that online business maybe doesn't exist. Maybe all there is, it's a one big scam. And I just, I can't find the proper way to do it. I never thought that I'm not good at it. I just thought that the whole idea was a scam. Now, I stumbled upon this one program that taught me affiliate marketing. And when I saw how affiliate marketing works, I was like, okay, that seems like actually something real and possible, because I got a chance to work with companies like Amazon and so on. So, if you're getting tied up to real companies, known companies, popular companies, you know that it can't, or at least it shouldn't be a scam. And what happened is, within 1 or 2 weeks, within the first 10 days of me starting that training, I was able to make my very first commission, which was about $30. And this is when I believed in online business, not in my specific business, but in the online business in general, where I saw the potential. And I guess this is where I believed in myself more, because when I first started, I didn't know how to create content. I still have a big accent when I speak English, but back then my English was on a much lower level than it is right now. And when I figured out that I had to write articles and blog posts, I was completely scared, and I thought I would never be able to produce good quality content. But I still did it because I saw that first commission, and right away I believed in myself and believed in the possibility of making money online. So I guess that would be the answer for Joy. I believed in my business and myself when I made that very first sale. Doesn't matter how big or small that sale is, but if you actually see that very first result from your efforts, from something you're doing, this is where you start believing in yourself, because you see the potential. So that kind of fear, it doesn't really go away, to be honest with you, because although I got a lot better at writing and I started blogging a lot more, and I built new websites, because I learned how to make websites, and I built different websites in different niches, different industries, and they started making money as well. But when I was starting this very podcast, the Extra Paycheck Podcast, I was really scared to kind of put my voice out there. It's not just writing. I have to actually talk. And that was pretty scary. But it's something that you just have to overcome, and you have to do it. And I know there are a lot of amazing podcasters out there, like Pat Flynn, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to compete with them as in the number of listeners. I would love to, but I don't know if it'll ever happen because this guy's way ahead of me. He started the podcast way before I did, like 4 or 5 years before I did. And there are a lot of little details that kind of should have pushed me away from even starting. But I said, no, you know what? I like listening to podcasts. I would love to have a chance, an easier way to share my content and my thoughts with people, which is through doing episodes just like this one. I thought I would love to speak with successful entrepreneurs and kind of, get into their heads, understand what they're doing, understand how they build their business and what went wrong, what went right, and so on. And having a podcast is a great reason to connect with those people, to invite them to be on the podcast. And that's another thing that I was scared of. And I didn't believe in myself at first, but it's just this mental block that most of people have. When you haven't done something, when it's something completely new, when it's out of your comfort zone, you will be scared. You will not believe in yourself at first, but you kind of just have to push through it and have to do it. The same thing doing videos. I still haven't done many videos on YouTube. I have a few videos on YouTube, and this is another thing that's kind of scary at first, but then you do a video and that's pretty much it. It's out there and you just break through that mental block. And so here's one of the tips, one of the big tips that I kind of use myself when I try something new, when I try to do something that scares me, when I try to do something where I don't believe in myself or I don't believe in my capability of doing that. I tell myself, what is the worst thing that could ever happen to me if I do that, if I try that? And usually the answer is ridiculously unimportant, meaning that if I start a podcast and it fails and nobody listens to it, so that's the worst thing that could happen. I stopped doing the podcast. And as I did in one of my write-ups, in one of the blog posts where I explain how much it costs to start a podcast, and you could start for as low as $100 or even less. So money-wise, you're not losing much. Time-wise, you're not losing all that much. And there you go. What's the worst thing that could happen? You just don't succeed. You don't do that. You do something else. Another tip that I would like to suggest, another big thing that you should think of when you're hesitating or you don't believe in yourself or in your business, you should ask yourself, what would happen if I never try? Because a lot of us who are starting businesses, especially online businesses, it's people who have a job that they hate, or they have a job where they understand that there isn't much potential. They're kind of reached the top of their position. They're not going to go any further. There are people who simply can't find a job, or they have been laid off, or they have been fired, and they don't want to go through that process and jobs and interviews again, and they want to start their own business. There are people who want to travel the world, and they understand that online business will give them that opportunity. This is why they want to start an online business, or at least they think this is why they want to start an online business. And when you hesitate, when you keep thinking about it, but you don't start it, and then you end up going back to your job or finding a new job, just stop for a moment and think, what if I don't start a business right now? I'll be stuck doing what I hate doing for the rest of my life. Or I'll be, I'll never get to travel. I'll never get to spend more time with my family. There's so many things that you should consider. And I'm not saying that having a job is bad. Some people love their 9-to-5s, and that's the kind of life that they like, and it fits them, and they have enough family time and enough vacation time, and they love their job. Good for them. It's not about not having a job. It's about doing what you love. And if your job is something that you love doing, then by all means, go ahead and keep doing that job. But if it's not, then I believe you shouldn't be doing something that you don't like. I believe that it's a waste of life, slaving away, doing something you hate doing, spending 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week doing that you hate doing. You should do something that you love. And this is always a thing that's kind of in front of me. Whenever I start slacking off, or I go on a vacation that's way too long and I don't get any work done, or I party too much and I don't get any work done, I stop myself and I think, wait, what if I stop doing my work? What's going to happen? And I see that image of my income dropping down slowly, eventually resulting in me having no money and having to start all over again or getting a job. God forbid. I haven't had a proper job since 2007. I've been doing online marketing and I don't see myself ever coming to a job, but that's something that I use to kind of motivate myself and to help me believe in myself. I would rather regret starting something that hasn't worked than regret not starting something and spending the rest of my life wondering, what if I started that business? What if I worked on that website? What if I got into a partnership with that person? What could have been? That question would kill me. So I would rather just go ahead, jump into a new project, jump into the new business, or keep working on my business but taking to the next level without really doubting myself. And this is when we come back to my very first suggestion. What is the worst that could happen? Not that much. The same thing for this podcast. When I invite people to be on the podcast, I am always thinking, what if the person doesn't reply to me? Or what if the person does not want to be on my podcast? And it happens. It happens that people reply to me and they simply tell me, look, your podcast is not popular enough. I don't want to waste my time being on that podcast. And that's pretty much it. This is where it ends. That's the worst that could happen. The person says no. However, at the same time, those kind of replies push me to work harder and to grow this podcast. So, in a half a year from now, in 1 year, in 2 years from now, I could reach back to that person and remind them, remember how you told me that my podcast is not big enough? Well, it's pretty freaking big at this point. So let's go be on the show. It's kind of a motivator at the same time. I'm getting a little bit off topic, but that's the thing. Once again, we are not wired to do great things most of the time just, like that. Just start doing something you've never done. Start a new business. Start a new band, become an artist, travel the world. It's hard to do, and we're not wired or programmed to be like that. We're told that we should be safe, find a safe job, build a good career, and don't take many risks. And this is where kind of the life happens, in that risk area. The life happens out of the comfort zone. And another suggestion that I would like to mention, to talk about here in the podcast, it's a book that I've recently read twice or 3 times by now, I think. This is the 3rd time I'm reading it, actually. It's called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Really great book. And Steven, the author, in this book, he mentions a thing, he calls it resistance. And he talks how resistance controls our life in a way. A resistance, it could take different shapes. And one of the shapes is the fear of the unknown, is the fear of starting something we have never done before. Or procrastination could be the resistance as well. We're not scared to start a new business, but we don't know where to start. So we think to ourselves, yeah, you know what? Today I'll just watch some YouTube videos and I'll do my research tomorrow. I'll figure out tomorrow how to start a website. But, tomorrow something's going to happen on the news and you're going to spend time watching more YouTube videos, or you're going to spend more time watching Netflix or going out with your friends, and you'll never get to starting a business because of procrastination. There are many, many different reasons why we don't start a business, and The War of Art is a great book to kind of help you understand that and to help you beat your own resistance, to figure out why you aren't heading the way you want to be heading. It helps you to figure out what's keeping you back and what is that obstacle in front of you that you should beat in order to start your own business, start your art project, start whatever that you've been wanting to start but didn't for whatever reason. So I highly suggest it. If you want, you could find it at extrapodcast.com/war, WAR. This is my affiliate link to Amazon. You could order it on Amazon as a physical book or as an audiobook as well. Highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite books in 2016 for sure. I have read it several times, as already mentioned, and I will keep on reading it because I find it really amazing. Now, that's about it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value from these tips that I gave out. And I know that starting a business or starting a project or starting anything you want to start is really, really hard. most of the time, but it's something you have to do if you really want to. You have to break through that fear. You have to break through that wall and just go ahead with it. And don't forget to ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? All right. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be putting up a show notes page at extrapodcast.com/80, episode 80. Also, you could head over to extrapodcast.com/iTunes in order to subscribe to the show. And please do leave me a rating and a review. It will help this show tremendously. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next Monday.